Well, she can join us. Okay, hello everybody. Let's start this meeting, please. Welcome to the February 2018 Tampa Historic Streetcar Board of Directors meeting. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is approval of minutes. I'm sure you've all read them.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Streetcar system report, Mr. Allen.
Good afternoon. For January, the system had delivered 99.75 of its trips. We had 5.75 reported missed trips. These were an accumulation of trips we had to cancel because of the NHL All-Star Game, where we couldn't run through the area behind Amalie Arena. It was kind of a knee-jerk reaction for safety.
Right.
On the Sunday of the All-Star Game. Our on-time performance was 99.86. The late departures there were all because of signal issues at the CSX interlocking. We had no accidents to report for January, but I would like to say that for 2017, we had 9 total FDOT reportable accidents, which were all crossing accidents, with vehicles. And that was down from 18 the previous 2 years. So our trending as far as accidents go is doing very well.
You had 9 accidents?
Over all of 2016.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going to say
2017, I'm
since
sorry.
last month.
No.
Last weekend.
No. No, that would have been very bad. And all of our inspections and everything were done on January 30th. We had a joint interlocking inspection with the FRA, CSX, and Amtrak. This was part of our renewal of our joint use waiver that we have with the FRA, and we had no issues at all. The FRA gave us a very nice report on that. And finally, we had 35 wheelchair boardings in January, so those numbers continue to be very high.
And go up, right?
Yeah. Any questions?
No. Welcome, Commissioner Kemp. Nice to have you with us today. No, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is legal and legislative report. Mr. Smoker?
Mr. Chairman, I only have one item, and it's really just an initial discussion item. It relates to THS's current advertising policy. The current advertising policy authorizes exceptions to the general prohibition against advertising of tobacco and alcoholic beverage sales. And the exception allows advertising on behalf of THS that promotes local economic growth and tourism relating to the regional cigar industry and the regional hospitality industry through alcoholic beverage sales, quote unquote.
That's our current policy.
That is our current policy. And that any exception has to be approved by HART's CEO. And the advertising cannot depict or imply any underage or illegal use of any products. It can't depict or imply paraphernalia for the use of any of these products. And it can't depict or imply consumption by any specific person or groups of persons. And it must also display the responsible drinking message. The issue for discussion and consideration by THS is whether to amend the policy to kind of make it a little more flexible. Specifically, do you want to include promotion of other industries other than just the cigar and hospitality industries? That would be the one consideration. For example, cruise ship, sports teams. I mean, there's probably a pretty good list of industries that could arguably be included within this policy. And obviously, the more of these industries you are able to include in the policy, the more advertising revenues you can potentially generate. So that's the first consideration. The other consideration relates to the current restriction in the policy that refers to only regional industries. And the question becomes, well, you know, what does that really mean, regional industries? And do you want to continue to have that restricted language qualifying the types of industries that can be advertised? So those are the issues. I've had some discussions with HART's general counsel, and we both agreed that if there was going to be any changes, it would have to be both approved by THS and also by the HART board. And so this is really just sort of an initial, what do you guys think? Get it on the table, see what you think. Do you want to change? If so, how do you want to change it? And however you would decide to change it, it would still have to be approved ultimately by HART's board as well. So,
is this driven by some specific request?
Yeah. There was a situation that surfaced where there was some advertising that was reviewed, which technically was advertising an out-of-state liquor brand. And so it kind of raised the question of whether or not that was really within the scope of
Is that
policy.
the vodka ad I saw in the car?
Correct, the Tito's vodka ad. And so that's kind of what caused it to percolate up into David Smith's and my arena. And I think we both agreed that, at least from the standpoint of increasing flexibility in terms of the policy to increase revenues, it might make sense for the two boards to consider making it a little bit more flexible.
Mr. Stewart, anything you have to add to this?
I do believe that an estimate needs to be made on the type of potential revenue that we could receive by changing the policy. I remember some years ago when we actually had the policy discussion to change it to allow the alcohol advertising. And I don't recall at the time why we restricted the regional component to the policy. But I do realize that the potential loss of revenue by not amending as a hunch is probably pretty significant. So, I mean, my recommendation would be to do an analysis of exactly what that revenue would look like, what some of our potential clients would be, what some of those products would be, what have we excluded based on that policy, and then come back and have that discussion with the THS board at the next meeting.
Anybody else have anything to add?
You spoke specifically of exclusion of the cruise industry or the potential of the cruise industry, but there has been, it has been done as a cruise ship before. We decorated one of the cars as a cruise ship, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Did we?
Yes, we did a carnival ship. I specifically remember that.
And I know we've advertised the Lightning sports team.
Yep. Again, I'm trying to recall as to why the prohibition existed, but I think it makes sense to see what kind of money is out there, but I also would want to have a conversation with some of our funding partners to make sure that they don't have particular
issues.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
We can do that?
Yep, good.
Done.
Okay, Chair's report. The only thing I have is if you turn to the section that says Chair's report, it outlines how the board is constituted and who's on it and the vacancies, and it suggests that it will be time to select officers again in next month. I'm going to appoint Abby Doring Ahern as the chair, Dave Mechanic and Rick Hamilton to be the nomination committee. And if someone would let them all know and have them get together. And I assume that we'll receive this electronically as well, so it could be filled out online. Lena, we can get you'll send this all out electronically? Sure, okay. So if you'd like to serve or you want to make a nomination, you can do that, and that will all be forwarded to the nominating committee, and they'll come forward with a recommendation next month. Is that about right? Okay, good. The next item on our agenda is the CEO's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick update on Gasparilla. Gasparilla this year for the streetcar was phenomenal. It is the best year of revenue that we have seen in the last 4. It is. We had $24,425 received. We had 13,000 riders. During the process, we did not hear, at least for those of us that we really didn't hear any issues about having to pay on Saturdays. That didn't seem an issue at all. We had one of the first uses of our e-fare, Flamingo, was being utilized by patrons. We were excited to see that. There were a lot of riders that were not going to the parade. They were going to the NHL festivities downtown.
Cool.
It was a very successful day, revenue-wise, exposure-wise. We had no real issues as far as issues with the bus bridges. They worked really well, so very pleased with staff's performance, and it was a good year for Gasparilla for us.
Good report.
The second update on the Bernie car, I just wanted to mention that I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. English last month. We talked about, as you know, the HART board voted to accept the Bernie car back or into HART's responsibility. With that comes additional funding that's left over from the Streetcar Society. What we have agreed to with the Streetcar Society is that some of that funding will be used to have an expert come in, analyze the Bernie, give us an estimate of what it will cost us to actually get it back up and operational again. From that, we will have an MOU accepting the responsibility for those repairs, restoring the car back to operational state, and making a commitment to use it. And we'll talk about, and we'll bring it back to this board specifically on what events do we want to use that vehicle for. Something I had relayed to Mr. English in that meeting is that this gives us an opportunity to really start to showcase the streetcar again as a valuable asset to this area, not just as a viable commuter option as we try to grow funding over the next year, but a historical value as well. And there are some opportunities that we have once we get the Bernie, possibly a rededication event, getting more exposure to the streetcar history, and really using that to leverage some marketing in the future. So it's a great opportunity. I'll be reporting back to the board as we move forward with the evaluation of the Bernie car and exactly what plans we have on the marketing aspect. We feel pretty good about it, accepting it back in and restoring it and getting it back out there for the community to see.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
The third one is not on here. I just wanted to mention that over the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to ask Brian to come back to the podium real quick. I had mentioned a month or so ago that we had an agreement with the Memphis Transit Authority to have their streetcar operators come into town and get trained by our operators, by our trainers, and operate on our car. So if you could just give an update of exactly how's it been going?
It's been going very well. The people they sent us have all been exactly as they said, seasoned operators, professional. The first 3 we got, 2 of them were some of the highest seniority people MATA had. We put them through classroom work the first day, some hands-on in the yard movements on the second day, and then we put them out with our qualified trainers for the rest of the week so they can get 32 hours, which is what the FTA is requiring them for the recommissioning of their system. And we've had no issue. They've been very good, and we've actually used the process to create a couple more qualified trainers with our existing motormen, and this will help in the future when we go to excuse me, to bring on fresh motormen, greens that have never done it before. Our motormen now have some training experience with these people. So it's been all the way around a very good experience for us.
Thank you. And it's leadership in Memphis is excited. We're going to see if there's some type of reciprocal that could occur of getting some folks to Memphis. This has completely been on their dime. That would be on their dime as well. So it's been a very good partnership. And lastly, this week I had the opportunity to be shown some of the work down in the barn that's been going on by our staffs in the maintenance of our vehicles. And I think we've been very remiss in not acknowledging and demonstrating and showing the work that our staff does on the upkeep and rehabilitation of the cars that we have. Aside, forget the burning, just the regular cars that are in service. They're doing some work downstairs that we're going to be bringing to you over the next couple of months and showing you the innovative work that we're doing in-house to rehabilitate those cars, make them safer, make them more efficient, save overall costs in their long-term maintenance. And I don't think we have really, that I can remember, we've ever come to this board and shown the work that that team does.
I don't think you have.
So I want to plan on that over the next month or so, and I invite you all in the next month, take you down and show you exactly that rehabilitation work that's going on, and it's been fantastic what I saw. So I think it's time that we give them the props that they deserve for maintaining this fleet, and I'll be bringing that back in the next month or so.
That's great, Jeff. Thank you very much.
And that concludes my report.
Let me make a comment about a couple of things you reported. I want to thank the HART board and you for accepting the Bernie car. You know, this is so long ago that this was a long time ago, but I've been involved with the Streetcar, with the restoration of the Bernie car since 1986, several years after the Streetcar Society was formed, specifically to promote the return of a streetcar system to the city of Tampa. And the car was a way to gain momentum and be noticed. And so a lot of people spent a lot of time and raised a lot of money and put a lot of volunteer labor into that car. And the Streetcar Society is pretty much ready to call it a day. There are only a few of the original board members left, and at one time there were 250 people who were members and had spent $250 a piece to have a streetcar conductor's hat. And this was long before the streetcar system was really committed to by Mayor Greco in the late 90s. So thank you very much. The other thing is, it's an irony about Memphis. There were a number of trips taken by groups of local elected officials and interested parties in the late 1990s to places like New Orleans and Memphis and Portland. And when we went to Memphis, their system had been open for 3 or 4 years. They had a first line. If you know Memphis, there's kind of a retail mall. Well, that's where the first line went, and then there was a second extension, and then there was a loop that was closer to the cliffs that look over the river, Mississippi River, and then they did a big extension out to their medical district, which was, I think, 7 miles long. So they have 11 or 12 miles of streetcar. But the system has been shut down completely for over 2 years through, I don't know what kind of mismanagement. Several of the cars burned to the ground, and so the fact that they're reconstituting themselves and are coming here for some help, I think, is really a nice irony, and I'm really happy that you've accepted them and that Brian's helping them get back on their feet. Mm-hmm. Okay, our action item today. Oh, the sales report, Lori Gage report. Steve?
There's nothing.
Nothing new? Okay, thanks. Action item, resolution 2018-0202, accepting our final fiscal year 2017 audited financial statement.
Good afternoon. My name is Yuan Lee from the Department of Revenue and Finance of the City of Tampa. I'm here today to present to you the audit financial statements for the fiscal year 2017.
Thank you.
And I would like to add that we are getting a clean audit report from the auditors, which is the best opinion letter that you can get from the auditors. Do you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Everybody, I'm sure everyone's had a chance to pour through it. Feel free to do so later if you haven't. If not, a motion for acceptance and approval, please.
To accept.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Approve say nay. Thank you, and thank your colleagues at the city.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. We had asked Steve the last time where you can buy passes, and that if you're interested, the map on your right is outlines all the places that you can buy these passes. And I've had 2 or 3 people ask me recently where. I don't know how to get this list into the hands of the average person, but we are trying to do that in various ways. Steve, I assume?
We can definitely circulate it to all the CRAs, and then community relations can take it out with them as well.
Good, that would be great. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, we have compliance reports. Any questions? Anything else anybody would like to bring up? If not, this meeting is adjourned.